What's up, Dolphins fans? We are one day away from the second joint practice and the second preseason game, both against the New York Giants. Chris Bell is coming back, but injuries are starting to mount. We will keep you updated on everything that's going on in this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive Live with Perk. Welcome to everybody out there. I am Chris Perkins, your host, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins columnist. That is David Furones. He is your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins writer. Furones, man, the Giants come in. Familiar faces, right? Brian Burns, American Heritage. Francis Maui Noah, Javon Holland, ex-Dolphin safety. What do you expect from this joint practice and this preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to see Coach Jeff Hafley continue to build what he's building. I want to see some physicality in the joint session, and then also the preseason game once they are tackling on the field. So that's been the biggest thing, and I agree with what Hafley says about, hey, he's not trying to scheme anyone up in these joint practices. Right now, he's got to focus on evaluating his players and seeing who can play, who can fit certain packages. So, yeah, he's not going to be drawing up these blitzes like the Commanders did against them. The Commanders even had a hook and lateral, for crying out loud, in that joint practice, which is unseen, unheard of. But yeah, I mean, let's just see some continued progress and see who can play.
I agree. Physicality is the number one thing to me. I think it's the number one thing to Jeff Hafley, who seemed a little bit miffed that Washington schemed up some plays. I think the quote was, "You won practice, congratulations," something like that. Anyway, we're going to get into all of that. Hey, give us a like on the on YouTube if you like this show. Thanks to everybody out there for joining us. We want to remind you, if you missed any part of this live show, you can catch the podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We also want to remind you to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Fins Flash. You can get all the info on that by scanning the QR code that will be shown on your screen. Now, getting to the show, Chris Bell, the third round draft pick, wide receiver out of Louisville. He's been activated. We're going to tell you what that means for the team, what that means for the wide receiving core. Also, where do things stand at backup quarterback? Quinn Ewers is injured. Cam Miller, Mark Gronowski is going to be their show as far as backup quarterbacks behind Malik Willis this week. What do you want to see from Cam Miller? What do you want to see from Mark Gronowski? Furones bonus. You know we can't do a show without the Furones bonus. He's going to tell us what has impressed him most about quarterback Malik Willis. And finally, we will wrap this up by talking about that Giants joint practice and the scrimmage on Saturday. Thursday, by the way, that joint practice, the last chance fans have to see their team during training camp. As we always say around here, there's an ocean of possibilities. Let's dive in. There we go, baby. There we go. All right, Furones. So look, let's go segment number one. How significant is Chris Bell's activation? You know what I've said. I think Chris Bell, the wide receiver out of Louisville, third round pick, he could be the steal of the draft. He injured his knee, his left knee, last season against SMU. I think it was November 22nd. It was sometime around Thanksgiving. But the fact that he's ready to come back, he's been activated, and we see him out there. I think this adds a big weapon to the arsenal for Malik Willis. He has a reliable target out there, a big physical target at 220 pounds, something like that. It adds something to the offense because now Devon Achane has another threat out there. It adds something to Bobby Slowick's play calling because he has another option. I think it's a physical option. I think it's a talented option. I think Chris Bell is somebody who's going to help this offense in a lot of ways. What are you seeing, Furones? And look, we don't want to build Chris Bell up into a Pro Bowler, but he's going to help this offense. What do you think Chris Bell brings?
No, let's do that. Let's hype him up as a Pro Bowler. Chris Bell. That's the time of year. This is the time of year for this. So, no, I mean, I really do think of the potential that can come from. We've seen Caleb Douglas really stand out in training camp. You combine him with Chris Bell now being activated, and then Kevin Coleman misses a couple days of practice, or a couple weeks of practice, I should say. He comes back and he scores 2 touchdowns from different quarterbacks, one with Cam Miller, one with Malik Willis, so different units that he's already working with as a slot receiver. that can compete with Malik Washington, who you would pencil in as maybe the most consistently reliable guy. I think we saw that Malik Willis went to him 3 times on that opening drive. I think underneath, that'll be a big thing. So, hey, for everyone who has said since the start of the offseason and since the Dolphins traded Jalen Waddle, the Miami Dolphins receiving core might be one of the worst units of all time. Well, then they found 3 in the draft, a couple in the 3rd round. Didn't even have to go 1st and 2nd round. A couple in the 3rd round, and now a 5th round guy where Sullivan, I know they haven't played a regular season snap, but he might have hit on all 3, and we'll really find out once they actually get some games under them. But for Bell, right now it's just get some work in. He's had 2 practices in a red non-contact jersey. So he's obviously behind a lot of the players who are now involved in live tackling. Everyone has been in a preseason game now. Everyone on this Dolphins roster there who was available. So he'll next need to be cleared for contact, and that'll take some time. We don't know if he might see a little bit of work in that final preseason game. Obviously, the joint practice on Thursday will be too early to get him into that kind of action, as well as that preseason game. Even the preseason finale still might be too early. But then do you want to throw him into a regular season opener as his first game action as a pro? There's still a lot to determine, but this, where he's at now, is much better than the alternative of if he had to stay on that non-football injury list, considered non-football because it occurred before he arrived at the NFL in college. It was a college injury at Louisville. If he has to then go through NFI, miss the first 4 weeks of the regular season because he's still rehabbing, this is a much better scenario than having that play out.
Furones, we're going to talk some comps, who you would compare Chris Bell to. But first, let's say what's up to some of the folks that are out there. Ender Fireplays, YT, what's up? Fitzgrass, Dead Street. Who else? Carl Beckert is out there as usual. Marcellus Temple, CLD 170, Bigotis 1775, Rashawn Brokenbro, JD the Great. Everybody's out there today, man. We like to see that. So welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Furones, let's go with some comps when you talk about Chris Bell. I've said that Chris Chambers, I think, is a good one. Other people say A.J. Brown. Some people say DJ Metcalf. Some people say Deebo Samuel. I say Chris Chambers just to kind of keep it in the ballpark. I think Chris Chambers was a big physical receiver. He made 1 Pro Bowl between his years with the Dolphins and the San Diego Chargers. But who do you think is the best comp for Chris Bell, and why?
Those are some good ones. I mean, just looking at how physically imposing he is and how strong he is, I do think of David Boston, who.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. About 2 decades ago, who actually joined the Dolphins in 2004, that season when Ricky Williams infamously retired, but made his name with the Cardinals before that. I was much younger, so I'm a little shaky on his whole career, but I just remember he was a big, strong guy at wide receiver. So that's one thing. And I asked Chris Bell. I asked Chris Bell about exactly that, just how he uses his physicality to his advantage. And he talked about, a lot of cornerbacks, they're going to be smaller guys. Some of them might have long arms, so they can use that as far as, when they're bigger in a different way. But he can use it to his advantage, both in his route running and boxing out guys, along with that speed, which he does run well at that size. And the way he blocks in the run game, too, that he considers himself an all-around receiver. And that's a prerequisite that Jeff Hafley will have for his receivers, as it's something that, hey, if your offensive coordinator is Bobby Slowick and he comes from the Shanahan tree, like Mike McDaniel, they have their tight ends. It's very important that they're strong in the run game, run blocking, but wide receivers down the field. That's something that they need out of wide receivers. And all those McDaniel years, Tyreek Hill was coming off the field when they were running the football. And then you'd look at at the snap counts and say, how did Tyreek only play 60-70% of the snaps? Yet he was targeted basically every time he was on the field. So, it's definitely going to be important for the run blocking aspect of this offense.
And so to put a bow on this, Furones, when we talk about the wide receiver crew. And coming into the season, I said that the three most troubling positions are edge rusher, wide receiver, and cornerback. And I probably had wide one. Now I've got wide receiver probably at number three because we've seen Malik, we've seen Caleb Douglas, we know the potential of Chris Bell. After that, it does fall off. But at edge rusher, Furones, I just see really Chop Robinson. I need to see more from Josh Uche and David Ojabo and everybody else. Cleveland Ferrell is still hurt. At cornerback, you do have some potential with Juju Brents, who is injured again, with Jason Marshall Jr., who I think has regressed, but Chris Johnson is there. Ethan Bonner, I think that's it. Ethan Bonner has to show that he's a starter, but I think with the emergence of Caleb Douglas, the reliability of Malik Washington, and the prospect of Chris Bell, wide receiver of those three most troubling spots, it's number three for me right now.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it was looked at as this troublesome position, but if you really have something in these rookies, then absolutely there is a reason to feel encouraged about this wide receiver core. So, again, we saw Caleb Douglas do this in a preseason game against Commanders' second unit. Now, he has had a strong camp. That was against those Dolphins DBs that you're also talking about there for the most part. But then he goes and takes the field against the Commanders' first team in last Wednesday's joint practice out there in the DMV area. And he was the one making plays in a practice when there were few plays made offensively outside of like this red zone short touchdown to Devon Achane on a throw on a third down in an early period. Outside of that, maybe Malik Willis with his legs, but it was Caleb Douglas having one of the practices that we have seen from him, one of those same kind of practices. So it translated over to facing an opponent and a secondary that's considered a little bit further along than what we currently have with the Miami Dolphins. So, it's been great to see Caleb Douglas progress, Kevin Coleman get right back into it. You kind of have an idea of what Malik Washington can do. And then you got to see who else is going to make plays and take a spot, because Jalen Tolbert had what looked like a stranglehold on that role in OTAs and minicamp, and then he's kind of taken a little bit of a drop off in training camp. And then Tutu Atwell has made some plays sporadically, but not consistently. Hasn't been up there. So Taj Washington here and there, AJ Henning here and there, Theo Weiss, we remember him from last year, and his preseason. It's kind of like that core group at the top that you're seeing with those three rookies and Malik Washington.
Bigote 1775 says, what about OG, wide receiver comp to Bell? Aronde Gadsden, that's a good comp. That's a good comp. Finding Liberty says Bell way faster than OG was, but size-wise, they are comparable. Let's see, Bigote 1775 also said, what about DVP for Chris Bell comp? I'm thinking that's not Devontae Parker. I'm thinking I'm missing somebody there, but Chris Bell, if it is, Chris Bell is bulkier than Devontae. They both got a big catch radius, but Chris Bell is bulkier. I viewed Devontae
Parker longer.
He was, yes, exactly. And then Marcellus Temple says, is Kevin Coleman that far of a drop off from Douglas? Kevin Coleman is slot. Caleb is outside, but speed and potentially, no, I don't think he's that far off. We just haven't seen enough of Kevin Coleman. Caleb has been up and down. Again, I go back to the him stepping out of bounds and not knowing where he was on the field against Washington. That's inexcusable. He's a rookie, but that's inexcusable at any level. He's had a couple of drops. He had the one ball stripped by Juju Brents, but he's a rookie. He's going to do that kind of stuff. I like what I've seen from Caleb overall.
Yeah. Definitely a focus play, knowing your landmarks on the field.
Right.
Now, it's interesting. That was one thing he had just said in the joint practice was that's something he still has to focus on is his landmarks. Just having that awareness of where he is on the field, and then it actually came into play and affected him in that preseason game where, it's a sideline catch. He's not that close to the sideline, like you're supposed to extend your body, keeping your feet in to extend how far you can go out. And he was facing the quarterback entirely and outstretch the foot to then to settle it out of bounds, outstretch the leg to land the foot out of bounds. So had a couple of drops in camp, and then it was interesting that when a friend of the program, Omar Kelly, asked him at the joint practice in Washington, what do you do about the drops when you think about them? And he kind of denied that he's even having drops or any kind of issue. So that might leave you a little bit like, okay, wait, you have to acknowledge this did happen and that you are working on it. So hopefully he does. And maybe that was just kind of like a reaction. He still wants to let you know, hey, I've been doing my thing out here too, which he has. So hopefully he gets that part of it right.
Yeah. Caleb seems like a fun guy also beyond all that. So I'm hoping that he makes it for our selfish purposes, right? We always like fun guys in the locker room and who give us good quotes. So that's another bonus reason that I hope Caleb Douglas makes it. Furones, let's migrate over to segment number 2. Where do things stand at backup quarterback? Backup quarterback was an issue in the McDaniel era. They could never find a solid backup quarterback. Injury problems came up first with the Teddy Bridgewater, Skylar Thompson duo, and then complications went from there. Now they've got Quinn Ewers, last year's 7th-round pick, started the last 3 games, showed promise at the end of the season, although the numbers weren't that great. He showed promise. OTAs and minicamp, he showed promise. I think he's taken a step back in training camp. Now he's got the groin injury. Where do you see backup quarterback with and without Quinn Ewers?
Yeah, you need to see a healthy Quinn Ewers to really get a true scope of this. And we can tell he really hasn't been himself all camp. OTAs and minicamp, those 6 sessions, we were talking about Malik Willis and Quinn Ewers aren't far off. Should it even be a competition actually? Whereas you kind of figure, well, if they paid Malik Willis, so he's going to be a starter.
Right.
But as far as the performance you were seeing in those earlier offseason workout sessions, you kind of felt they were pretty close actually, and especially when you were coming off of the end of Ewers' 2025 season, starting 3 games as a rookie 7th-round pick once Tua Tagovailoa was benched. But he really hasn't been himself. I also heard, according to a source, that he was dealing with a separate injury, which will remain undisclosed going into camp, that has possibly affected him. The groin, I think we can tell there was that running play to the left where you pointed this out, watching that play again, Perk, in the media workroom, where that might have been where it happened. He kind of was grasping at it a little bit, was walking a little bit differently afterwards. So, he's fighting through it. He's obviously during training camp, guys who are not secure in their job, or at least he's a backup. So, he might be more secure than, you don't fear that Cam Miller is going to come up and take it unless he's really continues to stack up really bad performances. But now this is a shakeup where Ewers presumably will miss this preseason game, and especially we have to find out from Hafley if the starters are going to play in this one. But if Malik Willis isn't going to go out there, let's say after he did, and they had a successful 1 scoring drive for the starters, then this is going to be a lot of Cam Miller. And then beyond that, where he went in, not even the first series of the second half. Quinn Ewers got the first series of that 3rd quarter this past game. Then it was Miller. And then beyond that, it's going to be Mark Gronowski. So if let's say in the scenario where Malik Willis doesn't play in his preseason game, it's like Cam Miller for a half and then Mark Gronowski for a half, who has had his struggles as the 4th stringer when all were available, and has now just come back to the team. So that'll be really interesting to see how they play in this preseason game, if that is the case.
Yeah, you know what, Furones, and not to be alarmist, there's potentially trouble at the backup quarterback position. We'll see if Quinn Ewers can regain his form that he had late last season in OTAs and minicamp. If not, that's a future issue. But for now, in joint practice and this game, it is going to be the Cam Miller, Mark Gronowski show. And the good thing for them is they both have an opportunity to make a move, on Quinn Ewers. this regime didn't draft Quinn Ewers. They have no obligation to Quinn Ewers. They're going to play whoever gives them the best chance of winning. If Cam Miller and Mark Gronowski, through extended showings in joint camp, joint practice, and this game can show something, the Dolphins, they could have a number two quarterback competition here. On the other hand, if Cam Miller and Mark Gronowski don't show anything, man, it could be a long and painful game on Saturday. Because look, Cam Miller threw the 2 interceptions against Washington. Gronowski threw the 1. Neither of them have been impressive. So they both have a great opportunity here, or the Dolphins could be facing a crisis here. This is going to be a big week at the backup quarterback position, Furones.
I'll tell you what, I was there at Northwest Stadium, previously FedEx Field, yep. and I watch as Quinn Ewers, all right, lackluster going into halftime, gets the first series. Oh, okay, they want to see if they can end on a positive with him. Still doesn't get anything going. And then I'm watching that thinking, oh, boy, this is an opportunity for Cam Miller, because we've seen preseason battles like that in the past. Like I remember the year that it was Mike White going against Skylar Thompson.
That's right.
And really, we forget this because Skylar Thompson then – he got the opportunity week 3 against Seattle and it really had a rough game. Mm-hmm. But in the preseason, neither one was standing out. Mike White, Skylar Thompson, and then it was that preseason finale where Mike White didn't have the offense rolling. Skylar Thompson comes in, and all of a sudden they get moving. And then it became clear, okay, Skylar Thompson deserves the backup job. Where I was wondering, okay, is this the moment where now you see that difference? Oh, Quinn Ewers comes out of the game. Cam Miller gets the offense moving. And then that prospect of it just fell flat too. Cam Miller, maybe he completed a pass here early, but then also was hurt by a couple of drops. Let's make sure we note that between it was DJ Herman had one, Seydou Traore. Yeah. There was a Terrace Marshall Jr. also. All of these drops that the pass catcher should have come up with. So he was hurt by that. Quinn Ewers, in context, also had some guys run the wrong routes for him. So the coaches understand the full context of it. This receiver wasn't where he was supposed to be. Quinn Ewers did throw it where the ball was supposed to go, and that's why we had Quinn Ewers looking like, why is he throwing to this open space where there's no one? Well, he was let down by his receiver. So, but as it goes for Ewers, and okay, sure, yeah, we can reason that, okay, this isn't who Quinn Ewers truly is. The fact of the matter is, it's who he is right now. If he's dealing with the groin injury, dealing with the other issue, that's who he presents himself as right now. And the NFL is, you know what it stands for, baby. It's not for long.
That's right.
So it's what have you done for me lately? And this is, if you're injured right now, then that's who you are.
Before we go into our favorite segment of the show, let's say this. When we talk about the wrong routes and drop passes and things like that, this game is also an opportunity to show coaching, right? Can you get these guys to run the right route? Can you get them to catch the ball? Can you get these guys to improve? Can you coach them up? Because we did, as you say, we did see some errors. It wasn't all the quarterback's faults. One thing that I credit Malik Willis for in that drive, 14 plays, 93 yards, touchdown using 7:06 off the clock, no negative plays, no confusion. Willis knew right where he was going with the ball every time. The 4 for 5, the only incomplete was when Caleb Douglas stepped out of bounds. So Malik was not only sharp himself, he ran a clean operation. He ran a sharp operation, right? No penalties, none of that stuff. Didn't have to wait for the plays to come in from the coach. So that's another thing for Cam Miller and Mark Gronowski. Run a clean operation, and then for the coaches, coach these guys up. We don't want to see them continually running the wrong routes and dropping passes. What can you do as a coach in this rebuild also? I want to welcome Cap for Life. Good to always see Cap for Life in here. Who else? Tony Rodriguez in here. C. Dola, I. Kerr, Dan Welch. Welcome to all of y'all. We'll clean up a couple of these things as we can here. Let's see. Bigotis 1775 says again, Edge CB updates. I see roster moves with Mason Reiger. Yeah, Mason Reiger was released. He was not very impressive, quite honestly. The undrafted rookie from Wisconsin, the edge rusher. he struggled to really stand out and make plays. He flashed very, very rarely, and that is a problem where for the team, that is a position where they're looking for somebody who can either rush the passer or sit the edge or do both. Riger didn't do any. Cap for Life says, I'm hearing we're looking at a quarterback from the UFL. That was the Jack Plummer tryout. And I think there was another quarterback that they had brought in when they brought him in. Do you remember that, Furones?
But there was a new name.
Oh, the new,
as
yes,
well.
That's right. There was.
Chandler Rogers.
Yeah. I forgot. That's right.
According to Bobby Shouts on X. With the Louisville Kings.
That's right.
2026 UFL champion. So, we'll see what comes of that.
We will. C. Dola says, who is our special teams guys, punt returner and kick returner? I think Malik Washington has both jobs right now. That's I think that's what it showed on the depth chart. But there's other guys. Jalen Rieger is being tried there. Ollie Gordon II is being tried at kickoff returner. Who else have we seen back there, Furones? Kevin Coleman Jr. We've seen back there.
Yeah, he can do some things in the open field now.
He can with that speed and that shiftiness. So right now it's really Malik Washington, definitely as the punt returner, kickoff returner. We'll see what they decide to do, but Malik did a good job as the return guy last year. Dan Welch says, "Hey Chris, I think you're wrong about what Sully said about drafting quarterbacks. He said every year or every other year." Yeah, I don't take him literally saying that they're going to draft a quarterback every year. Nobody drafts a quarterback literally every year, but I am going to be looking at them carefully this year because they didn't draft a quarterback last year. And when you say you're going to draft a quarterback every year, again, I take that to mean you're going to frequently draft quarterbacks. And so that's what I'll be looking at this year. I don't take them literally. Again, nobody drafts a quarterback literally every year, but I will be seeing, if you're going to live up to that claim in some fashion.
And we looked up the track record from the 2 decades. I believe this stat was from the 2 decades that Sullivan was with the Packers in different roles as he moved up the ladder. I believe it was 11-14. Don't quote me on the numbers, but the Dolphins comparison to how many quarterbacks drafted in the same time frame, it was about 3 off. So that's one franchise which had transitioned from always had a franchise quarterback. One franchise quarterback, Brett Favre, had the next one in place in Aaron Rodgers, had the next one in place in Jordan Love. Never was without their franchise quarterback, and still always brought in quarterbacks frequently, compared to another franchise in the Dolphins, which has yet to have a franchise quarterback since Dan Marino. Sure, all right, Ryan Tannehill got to his second contract. Tua Tagovailoa got his second contract before it went downhill. But still, it was just about as frequent, just the shots that they took at the quarterback. This first regime didn't draft one among the 13 picks, sure, but there was a big shot taken at quarterback in that first year in Malik Willis in free agency. So someone who Sullivan has already had from where he just came from. So you understand where that comes from. And then I'm sure they'll continue to take shots as this thing goes on.
Yep, and you were right. Chandler Rogers was the quarterback. Congrats to Sean Pitts, our producer, for finding that Bobby Shouse tweet. And congrats to Cap for Life here, who has in the chat that, Jack Plummer, Austin Reed was the other one, and then Chandler Rogers, the UFL quarterbacks that they wanted to that they gave tryouts to. All right, you guys know what time it is now, right? Y'all know it is one of the top 4 segments on this 4-segment show. It is the Furones bonus.
Oh, the Furones bonus.
I love it, baby. extra horns. I like it. Shoot them off, baby. That's it. All right. So look, Furones is going to tell us what has impressed him the most about Malik Willis. And look, there's a lot to be impressed by, right? I talked about running a clean operation. We've seen the strong arm. We've seen the accurate throws. We've seen the good decision-making. We've seen him using his legs a little bit more recently and we have not seen him running into Damar Hamlin like the former Dolphins quarterback tried to do. Yeah, I know that's a cheap shot. That was a
I
cheap
was
shot.
not expecting that.
No, I know. I know, too, and catching a stray from me. But look, Furones, tell us, that's inexcusable. Sorry, Tua. Furones, tell us what you've seen that you like from Malik Willis.
I think it's the consistency that we've seen from him, where we felt watching those 6 OTA and minicamp sessions that we had in the offseason. I wrote this in the month and a half that we had when we watched those before training camp. I wrote a column saying, strap up for the Malik Willis roller coaster that we're about to go on, because one day he could have this incredible practice or have these great moments, and then it might be the very next play where he leaves you with a head-scratching play, decision, throw, whatever the case may be. Now, fast forward to training camp, and we saw him have a rough second practice of camp. And then after that, it's just, okay, now the install has been there. They've gone through a third round of installing their key plays in the playbook. And once he's gotten that experience in drills, now we've seen a more consistent Malik Willis. Sure, maybe like just last practice, the defense got the better of the offense. They probably threw some new things at him. We saw Austin Jackson, for one, really struggle to pass protect. Top Robinson was eating him up. So the pass rush was intensified. Yeah, some things like that happened. But I think we haven't seen Malik Willis make mistakes twice. He doesn't repeat mistakes. The things that we were unsure of, decision-making and accuracy, yes, like last practice, he missed a couple throws. He was off. But it's been few and far between where we've had those moments. So he's been more consistent with his accuracy. Hasn't still didn't throw another interception. Yes, Jason Marshall dropped one, so he was in good position. But that was in single coverage. It's not like it was an inexcusable throw. Maybe his receiver could fight for the ball a little bit more. There's other factors too, but we just haven't seen that many mistakes from him. And then, the Commanders' joint practice, there was the one pick six, but it was debatable. Like Malik Washington really should have come back for that ball, so it wasn't even entirely on him. He comes out in the preseason game and leads that opening touchdown drive from being backed up. So you're seeing the things that you weren't sure of. He's coming through and showing improvement, and then the things that he can do. Let it fly with that big arm talent, make plays with his legs. The playbook has kind of opened up more, whereas we weren't seeing him run in those early practice sessions. Now we're seeing some of the design runs on a little read option where he might hand it off to Devon Achane, might tuck it and run. That's going to be a dangerous combination when an edge defender is put into conflict of whether he bites in to help with Achane and all these other guys in the trenches that are getting blocked, or he's got to go and stay committed outside and be disciplined to make sure Malik Willis doesn't take it that way. That's going to be tough for defenders to stop. So plus Malik Willis scrambling, making plays with his legs as far as just extending plays so that then a receiver can get open like 4 or 5 seconds into a snap. So all these things, that's stuff that Tua couldn't do before. Now it's a little bit of a new era. It'll be exciting. Maybe there still will be the instances that leave you scratching your head, but those will be just growing opportunities for Malik Willis. And for the most part, he's receiving a passing grade in camp for his passing game.
Ah, look at you!
I just pulled that out right there at the end. I wasn't thinking I would go there.
You're a professional. You're a true professional, Furones. All right, let's talk about 2 aspects here before we get out of here. Malik has some weapons. Malik Washington, Chris Bell, Devon Achane, Aaron Brewer, Patrick Paul, Caden Proctor. What can he do for them? What can they do for him?
Everything. I mean, that's who he's going to be counting on. So I think we've seen that was a big concern was how much can you truly evaluate Malik Willis this year? And then you're seeing some encouraging tidbits that okay, yes, he might just have enough. I asked that question to Malik Willis at the start of training camp on Veteran Report Day, and he said, Hey, not every big name was always a big name. I'm
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing a little bit, but
Yep.
they didn't start out off as big names. They had to make a name for themselves. So maybe that is a Caleb Douglas doing this. Maybe that is a Malik Washington after a couple seasons where year two he starts to increase his catches underneath, but he's got to add some depth to his routes and get downfield more so he can be a more of a complete option. If Chris Bell comes into the fold, the run game working with him, Devon Achane can catch the ball out of the backfield. Kevin Coleman as another slot receiver who can do some things in the open field. Greg Dulcich, the offensive line, everything working in unison. So that'll be part of the evaluation. If all those pieces aren't doing their job, then that's going to be a caveat into any negative evaluation potentially of Malik Willis. But if it's all working, then that'll obviously be a huge plus to how Malik Willis brought these pass catchers who were viewed as this inept group originally. Well, he helped to bring them up as they did their part as well.
And then let me ask you a combo question here, Furones, because we talk about the offensive line, pass protection. We talk about Malik Willis running. This week against the Giants, in joint practice and the game, we could see Patrick Paul and Austin Jackson going against Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, right? So tell me about what that will tell you about the confidence Malik Willis has in his pass protection and his decision making. When should I pull it down and run? When do I have faith in my receivers? This is all a learning process, right? For Malik and the Dolphins, Bobby Slowick, Jeff Hafley, everybody.
Oh yeah, no, he's gonna learn.
Right.
He gonna learn.
Right, exactly.
He's gonna find out if Austin Jackson can be reliable on that side. If Patrick Paul can take his success from his second season and the jump he made and stack that up and now be a consistently reliable player. Where we were having this discussion of with one of our editors of is Aaron Brewer considered the one reliable offensive lineman? And we were having a debate. Oh, I mean, Patrick Paul is just coming off a great season. Well, he's got to do it twice. It's not just a little blip on the radar and then disappear. So he's going to find out against these pass rushers what his offensive line can do. If he's receiving pressure up the middle on either side of Brewer with these young guards, Jonas Savaiinaia did impress in the preseason game. Yep. Caden Proctor on the other side. We know that left side of the line can be bulldozers in the run game with Caden Proctor. Like that size, the total weight that you have at left guard and left tackle, along with the athleticism and blocking of Aaron Brewer. If you go from center to the left side, that they can really push a pile. So that's one way you could run the ball. But what's the pass protection going to be like? And if you mentioned Brian Burns and Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau against that pass rush, you'll find out if it's not just Chop Robinson over here and maybe a little bit of Uche and Vito has had some moments, Ojabo here and there. Max Llewellyn had a good practice, but it might be a different level of pass rush that this Dolphins O-line is experiencing. So we'll see how that holds up, and then Malik Willis will really get the idea of when to tuck it and run.
And speaking of that, we haven't seen Malik run very much with the Dolphins or in his career, either with Green Bay or Tennessee. Does his style remind you of any other quarterback? Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. We know not Jackson Dart, who we're going to see this week because Jackson Dart crashes into people and ends up in the blue tent all the time. But what do you think? Does any comps as far as a running style for Malik? I don't. Nobody comes to mind for me, but I don't really know Malik Willis's running style yet. I can say I'm familiar with it.
That's the thing. I don't have enough of a sample size. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you think of the quarterbacks who can run, and nowadays there's so many more of them.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's to the Lamar Jackson level, but I mean, any one of them, we'll have to really see it. We'll have to really see it because we don't have that sample size. And he's got 6 starts coming in. But, I mean, a guy who can do both for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, Furones, let's migrate to our final segment, and it's what we expect to see against the Giants in the joint practice and in Saturday's preseason game. Somebody had asked us about this earlier, and I'm trying. Oh, Tony Rodriguez, what are you guys looking forward to in tomorrow's joint practice? So, look, let's get it started off with this physicality. And this is the first thing that I asked Jeff Halfley about after the Washington joint practice and the game is what did you think of the physicality? And he said, I thought it was good. But Furones, physicality is like one of the things that both John Eric Sullivan, the GM, and Half talked about in the opening press conference. And it's a theme that they continually hit on physicality and winning the battle in the trenches. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward. That's the first thing that I'm looking forward to seeing in this practice.
For sure. And that was the one thing that was maybe the saving grace of the Washington joint practice was, because we saw Jaden Daniels was hitting open receivers downfield constantly. Mm-hmm. Secondary was getting eaten up. Yeah. A secondary that is already kind of void of playmakers. But then remember, they were down Dante Trader, Juju Brents, and Chris Johnson participate in the practice. He did come back and play in the preseason game. So you're missing those. You're already missing Storm Duck and Darryl Baker. So you were like down there in the depth chart, and that first team Washington offense, that passing game was just consistently getting open, whether it was Traylon Burks and Van Jefferson and Diami Brown, Terry McLaurin, who had a moment, but then didn't even see that many reps in the practice, nor did Stephon Diggs. But it's like guys 3 through 5 or 6 on the Washington receivers depth chart, eating them up. And then same thing on the other side. With the offense struggling to get moving, the first team offense struggling to get moving, to pick up a first down outside of when maybe Achane made a play, maybe Caleb Douglas made a play. But the one thing that they came away pleased with in terms of Dolphins players and Halfley is that they were physical. So it wasn't like last year's Chicago joint practice where, now those guys started tackling and that wasn't the rules established. Right. But it was kind of like there wasn't a response. It was like they didn't meet the physicality. And then you end up seeing the way the season played out. The Bears and Ben Johnson had established them as being physical up front. And then the Dolphins were everything but last year. So maybe that's just the start of establishing some physicality, is to go, set that standard right from the jump in your first time going against an opponent. So I want to see them continue to do that, and not just when it's that first opponent that you face. Like now, it's nothing special about now doing it a second time. It's it's just the same thing again, but keep that consistency now as you go into the second joint practice.
Yeah, I think that's what Halfley wants to see, is his team take the battle to the opponent. And I think he talked about that in the introductory press conference, or one of the earlier ones, that he wants that opponent to know that they were in a physical game, win or lose, that they were in a battle with the Miami Dolphins. Eric Dahlberg will lead us into this. He says Vegas 4.5 line seems too high considering the tough schedule and limited talent. 2.5 would be more realistic. And he's talking about the over-under win total at 4.5. I think it's pretty good. I think I'm seeing a 5-win team out there right now. And that leads me into this, what we want to see against the Giants. 2 things: a crisp operation with few penalties, and playmaking ability on both routine and big plays. I think those 2 things kind of help when you don't have the talent that you expect to have that other teams have. If you play crisp operation, few penalties, and you show some playmaking ability on both routine and big plays, that shows me that you've kind of got the bases covered, right? Or the basics covered, rather. And that, it takes something special to beat you. The other team has to be on top of their game. So that's what I've seen pretty much so far with the Dolphins, that it has been a pretty crisp operation. Now, look, there's a lot of young players, a lot of first-time NFLers, so there's going to be a learning curve here. But I think they've done that. The playmaking, we'll see. Coverage is shaky in the secondary, but again, you're missing Juju Brents and you were missing Dante Trader for a long time, and for you really don't have another safety. injuries are creeping up when you talk about the playmaking ability guys like Jordan Brooks, right? He hasn't practiced in the last few days. Zach Sealer hasn't practiced in the last few days. Now Kenneth Grant is going to be out. So the playmaking on routine and big plays might take a dip, but somebody better show something. So that's two of the things, Furones, that I'm looking for in this joint practice and the game. Two things that could save them some, I guess, losses during the regular mind numbing losses with dumb penalties or mistakes. Clean the game up. I think they've done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back because a couple of things remind me of the 2019 season where
Yeah.
Brian Flores took it over first in the win total. And whenever someone asks me, and I do say 5, I agree with you. And I take it back to if the 2019 Dolphins won 5 games, and that team, I wasn't covering the team yet. I started in 2021 on the Dolphins beat.
Yeah.
I was on the Miami Hurricanes beat at the time. And I remember watching from afar. And I was traveling back from game against UNC. And for that opener, when Lamar Jackson and it was Hollywood Brown, right? They were just tearing the Dolphins apart. And then that week, and then the next game at home against the Patriots, and the combined score, maybe you have it at the top of your head, but I was watching those 2 weeks like, this might be the least talented team relative to the league at the time that we've ever seen. I really could not fathom how they could win a game. And then even that team ended up winning 5 by the end of it. So these guys, same way, like they're not out here trying to tank and rebuild. That like that's not in their vocabulary. They're trying to win with what they have available. So yeah, I could totally, with the way Half is building this thing from the start, establishing the culture, I could totally see him ending up with 5 out of 17. I mean, that's not asking that much. So, yeah, and then what the other thing you mentioned was the crisp operation is. So if you're already behind the 8 ball in terms of the talent on your roster, then don't make things more difficult with a bunch of penalties and mistakes. So I take it back to 2019, and Brian Flores had that takes no talent thing. Like, that's what got them to be one of the lesser penalized team. Like, you could tell Halfley is getting that part of it drilled into these players. Preseason game, Ollie Gordon, 15-yard penalty, he gets taken right off the field. So it's not just that they're saying it. Right. They put it into action. So that's how you have those coaching moments, and you get that out of the way in the preseason. And maybe Ollie Gordon, next time he wants to act out in the middle of a game, that won't happen. And he's going to remember, if I want to stay on the field, especially as a third running back, then, yeah, I got to make sure I'm not putting my team in a predicament. So it's good to see that he's doing those kind of things, and that'll help them maybe get to what we were talking about, that win total, where it won't be as low as a lot of people are thinking just when they look at the roster on paper.
Before we go on to the last part of this, which is players who have an advantage, who have an opportunity to take advantage of missing personnel or practicing against the Giants or playing against the Giants. Let's go out here to the text line. Chuck Cole says, Willis has come a long way. I saw him at Liberty, even saw him live, and he was very erratic with the throws. He always had the run part of his game, though. And saying that, Chuck, I think you're right when you say he's come a long way, because I don't see the erratic throws. Like Furones said, we don't see Malik Willis making the same mistake twice. So I think Malik Willis has come a long way. I think that he's a good quarterback. And I've said this is a 5-win team. So even as I compliment, Caleb Douglas and Malik Willis, there can be good things happening within a 5-win team. But I do still see this as a 5-win team. Malik Willis obviously has some growth to do. But, Furones said he likes what he's seen from Malik Willis's game. I like it too. So we'll see what happens. LeBron Bryant says, does Halfley seem to be in over his head? Furones, I'll let you have the first crack at that one.
Does Halfley seem to – sorry, say it again?
Does he seem to be in over his head?
No. I mean, he was a coveted option in this coaching hiring cycle. He was about to go to I can't remember if it was confirmed or not, but to Tennessee. You saw the Titans. It was the same day they moved on and picked up Robert Saleh, where it was kind of an indication, like, yeah, they were really looking at Hafley. He had other teams trying to get him on a flight or interview him when he had already said his next interview, that second one with the Dolphins, was what was about to happen. And he's got someone that he's comfortable in working with in John Eric Sullivan, as they were together in Green Bay. He's done this before at the college level with 4 years as a head coach at a program where he had very limited resources in Boston College. So I remember when I first saw the hire, and I'm at the College Football National Championship covering it that night. And yeah, I am. So I'm in a college football environment, and then I'm there thinking his head coaching record was what it was, a sub 500, I believe, in 4 seasons at Boston College. And actually, I talked to some national college football insiders about Hafley who got to know him that day. And they were saying, no, you can't judge a guy off his record at BC. You don't have the resources there. But, they really vouched for him. So that was even like first impression from just that day to then, talking to players in the draft process that had him. And everyone just feels like comfortable in him being someone that they can learn from. And you see the way he's attentive to where he has specialized in the DBs and how he's coaching up the right technique there. Take some time to do that. Take some time to be a head coach of the whole operation. So I think he's going to be growing as a coach, of course, but I just see a lot of confidence in him. He's a direct communicator. So that's why I wouldn't think he's in over his head. In fact, the opposite. When I listen to him and watch him coach, I would think, no, okay, now I see why he's viewed as someone ready for this kind of job.
Yeah, I think he's ready for the job. I like what he says, and I like what he does. And it's not separate things. He does what he says. So when he talks about physicality, that is an emphasis in practice. And when he talks about all of the little things like clean operation and that kind of stuff, those things are emphasized in practice. You see Hafley going over, and it's the personal coaching, either with the coaches or the players. He's a very hands-on type of guy, detail-oriented guy. So I think he's up for the job. Whether he's has a winning record or not, who knows? But I don't think that this was a bad hire. I don't think that this was he should have spent 2 more years as a coordinator. I think he's ready to be a head coach. Furones, let's talk about some players who can take advantage of their opportunities Thursday and Saturday. We can go back and forth, or I can name some guys and you can comment, but let's start with Tutu Atwell, our homeboy here. He has not been impressive. He needs to have a good showing both Thursday and Saturday. He's another one who's been tried at special teams as a return guy. He needs to excel at returns. He needs to excel from scrimmage, or I don't see him on this 53.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. When we were talking about the wide receivers, we mentioned him. Jalen Tolbert in the same breath as a veteran who came over because there are some opportunities here. And he had a good 2024 season, but got buried on the 2025 Cowboys depth chart. So it's not just like an automatic that, because he's done it before, he could be the number 1 receiver here. No, Caleb Douglas already surpassed him, honestly. And we don't know how it'll go in the regular season, but I remember telling people, Tolbert seems like the guy, the go-to target for Malik Willis from OTAs and minicamp. And training camp, it's been Caleb Douglas and Malik Washington is also obviously surpassed him in that regard, and kind of always had it with Malik Willis too, as far as the underneath guy. If you want me to give you another name, then I'll go to the offensive line and say Charlie Heck, because he's a reserve tackle who was brought in to be like that backup swing tackle, and then he struggled in camp when Austin Jackson missed a couple practices. Then he got that work from whoever was in front of him, and had a rough time at it. Prompted the team to go and scoop up Caden Wallace in a trade, a guy who was about to get cut from the Patriots, and they pick up a former 3rd-round pick, so still see the potential in him. And he's maybe had some moments where he's gotten beat in one-on-ones in the team setting, but you see in glimpses what he can do. So now that puts Charlie Heck in conflict. Like, they brought in a guy
Right.
to take the job you thought you were just going to. I mean, maybe he didn't just think he was going to have it solidified or give it to him, but that's what was supposed to be his job.
Yep.
And especially if Jamari Salyer's
Right.
season is over as a guy who they wanted to play at guard, but also had the versatility to play tackle. Like, yeah, you're looking thin there. So, Heck has to pick it up if he wants to find his way on this roster, honestly. So, if we're going back and forth, that's the name I'll give you first off.
Yeah, let me give you some linebackers. Terrell Dodson, Jacob Rodriguez.
Yeah, Tyrell Dodson, right?
Tyrell, I know. He corrected me on that. You would think he called me out on that. And you would think I would know. Tyrell Dodson, Jacob Rodriguez, Kyle Lewis for different reasons. Tyrell, you got to keep your starting job. Jacob is probably going to take that starting job at some point this season. Is it by the season opener? But so both of those guys have an opportunity on Thursday and Saturday. And then Kyle Lewis, they kind of, I don't know if he's a full-time safety, but he's going to get some looks at safety on Thursday and Saturday, I would think, as he has in practice this week. So opportunity for Kyle Lewis to show I can play two positions or I can be a starting safety.
Yeah. Kyle Lewis is a good one. Being back there, we knew he had the versatility. He was an undersized linebacker, which is honestly why he fell to the fourth round.
Right.
Not a lot of people thought he'd escape day 2 of the draft. So the Dolphins were very willing to snag him, even after they took Jacob Rodriguez and Trey Moore, who is a linebacker with some versatility on the other end of that spectrum, in that he can be an edge rusher as well. So, I'm very excited to see Kyle Lewis, and I assume he'll continue to line up at safety because that's what he's practiced this week. Yep. So why would you switch it up going to the joint practice? Hafley did say it's a new personnel package he's implementing there, which I think they always knew they could go to that, given that Lewis had that safety background from high school and took that into how he has that strong coverage ability as a linebacker. So versatility is definitely something to be proud of, especially in this defense where they're going to want to mix and match a lot. I'll go with another name on defense, Zeke Biggers, who with Kenneth Grant and Zach Sealer currently down on this Dolphins lead line, being week to week. I think we know a little bit more about what Jordan Phillips is and how strong he is inside, where he's just so potent and can push guys back and play at the nose or all the way out to the 3 technique. And Zeke Biggers, also with that size, where we've seen him extend out to the 5 technique and play out there on top of being on the interior of the line. So it's a big opportunity with a couple guys down to do some things in a joint setting, and he's elevated to he's up there as a 1 right now with a couple guys down. So let's see him put it together.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good one. I want to say what's up to Chris the bartender checking in from one of the Youpers up there in Michigan. What about we talked about Cam Miller and the quarterbacks. How about the edge rushers, Furones? David Ojabo, Cam Good, Max Llewellyn. These guys have an opportunity to show something also. We've said that Chop Robinson has been the big star. I think Josh Uche has solidified himself as the starter on the other side as an edge rusher. I haven't seen anything consistent from any of these other guys, Furones, and that's not a knock on them, but you have an opportunity to make this 53. Ojabo is probably the closest. Cam Good has special teams that he can rely on, but they need somebody to both set the edge and rush the passer as an edge rusher.
Yeah, I think we saw Max Llewellyn come up with a nice practice, and he's shown some things. Also got back there in the preseason opener, so I liked him as the 7th round pick because he was another guy. We talked about Kyle Lewis wasn't expected to last into the 4th. Max Llewellyn was just sitting there in the 7th as a guy who was expected to go earlier, and the Dolphins were able to grab him. I know a lot of people had similar hopes for Mason Rieger. I know he said Rieger. I always thought it was Rieger earlier, but he's no longer a Dolphins. so he did not pan out. But between Llewellyn, I think Robert Beal has had some strong.
Yeah, that's right.
In practice. Yes. So I will give it up to him. obviously it's Chop at the top, and he's had a tremendous camp. He's dominated so many practices, but. Uche next, I think with an expanded role, he can do some things, and then you got to see between if it's Beal, if it's Ojabo, if Llewellyn can elevate himself to that level. Cam Good more of an outside linebacker background as his edge rusher, but with the special teams background that he has. So. You need to see who flourishes out of that edge rusher group. That's a huge deal.
And then the last one, Furones, would be an undercover one. Riley Patterson, the kicker. Zane Gonzalez, his competition was injured, and so he's gone now. And Riley Patterson had a good year last year, but considering that this is an offense that might not be a finishing offense in the red zone, might not be a finishing offense at all, you would think a lot of field goals are going to be in order for this offense. So. Let's see how Riley Patterson does. Again, he did have a good year last year. I can't recall the numbers off the top of my head. I want to say 21 of 25, but I don't know if that – I might just –
I think it was only 2 missed field goals.
I might
27, 29?
I don't know. I can't remember. But he was good. But again, like you say, you've got to repeat that now. So let's see if he can repeat it. He's bounced around to a lot of teams, as kickers tend to do in general. But Riley Patterson also has an opportunity here.
I was right, Bert. 27
to 29.
34, 35 on extra points last year. So, I mean, as a pickup you thought Jason Sanders was going to be the kicker last year. He gets hurt in the preseason. So did very well. But those 2 missed field goals last season, he was also 2 down in the kicking competition with Zane Gonzalez. When they had pressure kicks, whole team out there, have a drive, spot the ball, we're kicking it. And Zane Gonzalez was actually ahead of him before Gonzalez got hurt. So, right now Riley Patterson's the only guy. But if he's not making his kicks, then they could look for help from the outside.
Yep. And speaking of that, somebody in here said that it'll be interesting to see how many ex-Green Bay Packers they go after. Oh, and Carl Beckert. It should be interesting to see who happily goes after from the Packers when they have their cuts. I agree with that, Carl. Welcome. Carl down there in Seguin, usually down in Texas. Chris the bartender, I know the Upers. Yeah, I know that term.
Yeah. Okay. And not only the Packers, I mean, it's going to be like John Eric Sullivan will have to be looking through the rosters of a lot of teams. And I'm sure he's already ahead of the game in terms of looking at some rosters where they're stacked at certain positions and they're not going to be able to keep all those players, and viewing what he knows about them and then watching practice and saying, okay, I could already see whoever's left off of that team, it's going to be an upgrade over the last guy that's going to make this roster at that position. So, roster cutdown day could be a very busy one for Sully. He's going to be putting in a lot of waiver claims, I think, afterwards. And then, so that initial 53, don't get used to it. Because it could be a totally different 53 the very next day. There will be movements. But yes, the Packers roster, that's one that he would have even greater familiarity with playing a huge role in putting that one together. So there are cuts over there. I'm sure he would welcome them with open arms as guys that he had high hopes for there, and then maybe can bring them down to South Florida.
Yep. Finn's Faithful Pod, thanks for checking in. George and Jason, game recognized game. Good to see y'all. That's going to wrap it up from here. Watch your socials we'll let you know when the next show is going to be. We don't exactly know when, but we're rolling now, baby. We're getting into the season. Training camp is midway through, and we will give you an update on everything we see on the next show. We will see you then. That's Furones. I'm Perk. We'll see you later.